This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Georgia Bulldogs football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere else. I am Tenitra Batiste, and alongside me are Jarvis Davis and Brent Rollins. This episode of the Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And it is an exciting day because we get to party, and we get to party because Georgia got another dub. It's a 52-17 demolition of Ole Miss Saturday. There was a reminder of just how dominant the Dogs can be. So let's talk about your top takeaways from this game. And of course, we're going to go between the hedges in our deep dive, and we're going to talk about what's up next. But I got to get, Brent, your takeaways from that game.
This is kind of what I thought the offense would look like all along.
Yeah.
I mean, beginning of the season, any interview, any talk, any conversation that I had was, look, quarterback's not going to get touched. There's going to be weapons galore, mixing in the running game a little bit, offensive line sort of dominant. That's what it was. That's what it was Saturday. I think when you put all the pieces, and obviously when you add two potential top 20 picks to your offense gets a little scarier. And it's a good thing. And now it's just about keeping those guys healthy, staying healthy, keeping that group together, I think, because the sky's the limit for that side of the ball for Georgia.
I think that's such a great point, Brent, that we always talk about, and not necessarily just this show, but I think just the conversation has been about, oh, wow, last year was an all-world historic defense, and, they don't have that anymore. But I think you make a great point. The fact that you have two potential top 20 first rounders next year, I think that balances it out on some level. Yeah, it may not be a historic offense, but when you have those two players, and let's just face it, wouldn't be shocked if Georgia had more players even in that first round or the top of the second round. That's when like you said, as long as they're healthy, you are cooking with gas. And Jarvis, what are your takeaways from that game from Sunday?
Georgia is so good that they make teams desperate on opening drives. That's why you've kind of seen, I feel like you've seen like teams starting the opening drive. I think it was the third straight game that the opposing team scored on the fourth straight game that the opposing team has scored on the opening drive. And when you think about how desperate teams look when Lane Kiffin looked when he went for it, or what is on the own 25 or 35-yard line, you just don't do that. Like, because you put your team in certain situations where if you don't get it, like you're going to be playing from behind for the rest of the game. And then when you get into, and then you're going to be one-dimensional. And then when you get one-dimensional, that's when you start seeing all those 4-star, 5-star guys that we've been talking about and asking, hey, let's get this pass rush going. So, and just to see how Team Georgia was able to make those necessary adjustments too.
Yeah.
And it is just so amazing that the watch, right? Because we saw, with Raylan Wilson, when he got lost in coverage on the tight end on the little rail route, I mean, not the rail route, the wheel route down the sideline, and he caught the pass. George said, all right, okay, CJ, come on in here. Let's see what you could do. And then you just saw 33 just all over just around every tackle, like for the rest of the game. So it's just so amazing to watch, to see how teams just come out saying, hey, we're going to do everything. We're going to throw everything we possibly can at this team on this opening drive to try to, get off to a good start. But it just seems like Georgia, every time they make the necessary adjustments, saying, you know what, okay, that's cool, all that. But, yeah, that's probably going to be the only score you're going to have as far as getting marching down the field, that easily. So, yeah, I think that's the one thing that I say. Georgia's that good where they'll get people to a point where they're just throwing the kitchen sink on these opening drives so they can try to get off to a good start and hopefully have a chance to win the game.
It's interesting because we talk about the fact that this offense was on fire on Saturday. And Brent, you said it first, like you have been consistent in talking about this is what you expected to see. But man, you got to say that it was still a pleasant, I don't want to say pleasant surprise, but it was still really, really good to see what Kendall Milton was able to do, career best 9 carries for 127 yards of Georgia's not 1, not 2, but 300 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns against Ole Miss. It just felt like kind of a Kendall Milton coming out party.
I mean, and also swan song in a way, because it was his last game in Sanford Stadium.
Yes,
But
exactly.
You can't help but feel great for the kid, because he ran to me, like, it took me back to when he was a freshman against Tennessee, and guys were just bouncing off of him, and you see, sort of patches of it here or there. You see a flash here and there. You haven't really gotten to see it consistently because of the nagging injuries that he's had in his career. But what a way to go out. Best in terms of yardage total, got a catch, a couple touchdowns, his highest career PFF grade, a lot of missed tackles forced in that game. Very impressive. And just keep it healthy, keep it rolling, keep him there, because if now you have that that two-headed punch, two-headed monster running back, that makes you that much more efficient, that much more explosive, and/or just scary as an offense.
Yeah. And I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but one of the things, just in listening to what Brent was saying, one of the things that I think about when you talk about motivation, when you talk about, the game that might get you, if you will, the gotcha game, I feel like guys like Kendall Milton, they still have that motivation. They still have that internal drive, because they still want to make an impact in the drive to the third championship. So I know, like I said, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but when I listened to you, as you were saying, Brent, from what we saw in the beginning of his career, all of the challenges with injuries, coming back and looking like he did, I just see him coming back, and many coming back at their peak at the perfect time. But Jarvis, what did you think about Kendall Milton's performance?
This is one of those things where it seems like it's been a theme with this offense, right? Because we talk about guys dealing with injuries and then coming back, and then they start to look like themselves. We saw it with Lad McConkey early with the back issues and all that stuff, and we started to say, okay, now it's the coming out game, or this is the game where you're like, oh, he's really, really good, And then, like, watching the game on Saturday with Kendall Milton, like you said, in his last home game at Sanford Stadium, like, you saw the explosion, right? Because that's what he's really been missing. Because early in the season, I talked about how Dajon Edwards is the lead back for this offense in 2023, because of just what he's able to bring to the table, and then being able to be fully healthy as well. But to see Kendall Milton break one of those runs, and then it just seems like he just turned it on another gear, and just ran away from them folks. Like, and it's just to be able to see how that kind of played out. And it was kind of funny, because he was talking about how, he was asked about, this offense reaching its peak. He's like, no, we ain't peaked yet. And that kind of goes to what you saying, T, as far as, like, we haven't peaked until we get this third straight national championship. That's when this offense is peaking. I think that the way they're rolling right now, like Brent said, it's scary. I ain't gonna say it could get scary. This is a scary offense, because all three phases, you're talking about offensive line, quarterback, pass catchers, running backs, all those guys, everybody's just rolling right now, and everybody's just getting healthy at the perfect time. This episode of ATL Football Party is brought to you by Jace Medical. Jace Medical provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. And guess what, guys? If you have children, you know that is going to come up, because I know in the middle of the night, I had instances where my daughter wasn't feeling too well. And then guess what? If you have a Jace case, you can go to that particular Jace case to get what you need. And plus, all it takes to get a Jace case is fill out a simple online form, and in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of our board-certified physicians, and boom, there you have it. So, and you can get ongoing care from our physicians on any treatment-related questions. I'm telling you guys, this thing is doctor-created, doctor-recommended. So don't get caught unprepared, guys. Everyone should be empowered to take care of their loved ones during the unexpected. Jace handles everything from online valuation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. And guess what, guys? Also, all you got to do is drop in the promo code Locked On, and you're going to get $20 off. Yes, you heard that correctly. All you got to use is the promo code Locked On for $20 off your purchase. So, guys, don't get caught unprepared, and get yourself a Jace case.
Now, there were some rumblings on Friday that Brock Bowers might play in the game against Ole Miss. But when UGA announced that he would be starting, Brent, there was just this collective, unbelievable roar from that crowd. And I can remember me thinking, oh my, this is about to get good. But what did it mean, and what does it mean for the Dogs to get Bowers back at this point in the season? And really, for some pundits who said he might not come back, to get him back, period.
I think the biggest thing actually is more of a leadership piece, as much as it is his play on the field and what he brings. And he's a threat, and he looked, for the most part, normal, amazingly. And he's Superman, he's Captain America, whatever tie you want to put to him, he's that. But I think it's as much a leadership issue as anything. It's just that's a guy who has won 2 straight championships, potential top 10 pick, and he doesn't care. He wants to be there. He wants to play, and he wants to put everything on the line for that team and for that school. And that's uplifting for an entire team. And I think just when your best players are also your best leaders, coaches talk that all the time, it's real. And it becomes a sort of force multiplier. And he is that for this offense and for this team.
Indeed. And, I think about this one word that comes to mind, Brent, is presence. Just the fact that he was there, suited up, ready to play, and then gets in the game and has a bit of an impact. I think, like you said, that's the kind of thing where everybody's saying, oh, yeah, he might not be Kirby Smart, but we'll go over a cliff for him because of the kind of things that we saw him do to battle his way back so soon. So, yeah, Jarvis, just Brock Bowers and what he was able to bring to the table, as Brett said, both on the sidelines but on the field was quite an amazing thing to see.
If I'm a defense coordinator, I'm about to get I'll start drinking a lot of coffee, whether it be Tennessee defensive coordinator, Georgia Tech defense coordinator,
Alabama.
Alabama. You better get ready, buckle up, because like I mentioned earlier in the first segment, like this is a scary offense. Like, this was one of the big questions coming into the season, like with Carson Beck taking over for Stetson Bennett. What is he going to bring to the table? What he's going to be able to bring that's different? Not necessarily that it's worse, but what is he going to be able to add to this offense to elevate it, right? And I think that when you have a guy like Beck who can make some NFL-type throws, I mean, Stetson Bennett had his limitations, but he's able, from a playmaking standpoint, to be able to get a little creative when plays break down. That's kind of what he brought to the table. But I think Carson Beck, as far as like a timing, like that throw to Ra Thomas in the first quarter, like a lot of people think like, oh, he kind of threw it behind him. No, he threw him open, like, because that the DB was right there on his inside, so he threw it to the outside shoulder, so Ra can say, hey, let me go snatch this bad boy up, all hands, and then I can take it on to the sideline to get up the sideline for a big gain. So it's just stuff like that I feel like, this is, to be able to have a guy like Brock Bowers in the fold like this is something that is going to be very, very interesting to watch as we come down to these last few games. But yeah, like if when you got a guy like Brock Bowers coming back in the fold, now I still feel like the Bulldogs offense can get the job done without Brock Bowers.
Sure.
And now it would be a battle, but when you have him coming back and he looks fully 100% healthy, after October 16th surgery, coming off October 16th surgery, yeah, it's pretty. It's just pretty. It's just hard to describe, right? Like, I'm trying to come up with a word to describe it, but it's amazing.
It's Superman-ish.
It's Superman-ish. Like, really. Like, and I wish I could say the other word, but I try not to cuss too much, because that's what Brock Bowers is. He just the epitome of what you want in a football player. And for him to talk like he did about agents reaching out to him about, sitting out for the rest of the season and respond the way he did, I'm not surprised at all. And defense quarters. Get your defense coordinators coming up. Make sure y'all get your popcorn ready, because this is going to be very, very interesting to watch.
So, Brent, what do you think about the return of Amarius Mims? How did he look to you?
He good enough. Like, and I will say, there was a couple of times that he pulled and was out in front, and you could tell he wasn't full go. That he was still a little hesitant in a way, but run block pass pro, quite well. And what he does, just his physical presence. Like there was one rep I went early on in the game, first couple drives, where he gets kind of beat, but because of his strength and just his sheer will, just one arms and throws the guy into the pile, no pressure on Beck. Like I think much like what Bowers does in the sort of multiplier that he is for the Georgia offense as a totality, Mims is that way now for the offensive line. And because you're like what you saw the rotation of Fairchild and Morris at left guard stay, and then you saw Mims, Truss, and Ernest Green rotate at tackle. Now you have consistently fresh bodies. Everybody's playing, sort of at a high level. Again, it's what we thought this offense and offensive line should be, but he's one that, again, difference maker and amplifies almost exponentially what the offensive line and the running game potentially can be.
Yeah. And then you talk about the loss of Jamon Dumas-Johnson, and you look at, CJ Allen and how he was able to perform in replacement of him. I mean, what'd you think with that performance, JD?
Yeah, like when you think about what CJ Allen was able to do, like I mentioned early on with Raylan Wilson and the again lost in coverage early on, that they brought CJ Allen in, and then we just proceeded to see 33 all over the doggone place. Being and using those being instinctive, as a linebacker, and those are the type of the things that when you talk about the inexperience that you have as a linebacker, you want those instincts to be able to kick in because he's at practice every day. He's working, he's getting the reps, getting the necessary reps. When Jamon Dumas-Johnson went down, these are some of the questions that we had. Who's going to be the guy to be able to step up? And we saw CJ Allen get busy. He was getting busy out there. So this is like the factory that is Georgia, right? Like, because, you have a guy who is an NFL prospect, and when you have a guy who come in, sure enough, the one guy that we thought that was going to be able to get most of those reps, he had a little issue. Yeah, Kirby said, "Hey, man, come over here on the sideline for me for a little bit. Let's make sure we get this situated. And then, let's throw this other guy in, they can come in and just ball out and look like a future NFL prospect as well." So, yeah, this is the football factory that we expect Georgia to be. And like when you talk about replacing guys like Jamon Dumas-Johnson, and for Allen to come in the way he did, it just speaks to what we're used to. And like, we are just snobs when it comes to Georgia football because they just have raised the expectations so high. It is for Kirby to be able to meet them year in and year out. It is just amazing. It's just amazing to watch.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll say it speaks as much as anything. Obviously, recruiting and getting guys at that level, that matters. It's everything. But once they're there, like, to me, that was a big distinguishing factor in watching this game is the level of coaching the entirety of the coaching staff versus what their opponent was, the attention to detail and all these little things that coaches care about in terms of foot placement or where are your eyes, all the little details, they are taught and emphasized to the nth degree at this program. And you see that in the play, and you see that anything that sort of steps to the side is quickly corrected. It's CJ Allen, by the way, like just as a whole, from a PFF standpoint, Pro Football Focus stats, there's a stop is a solo tackle where the offense is at a loss, and it's not necessarily a loss of yardage. So like if it's 3rd and 3 and they only get 1 yard, you prevent them from getting the first down. That's a loss for the offense from a success rate standpoint. He had 8 stops in the game, so 8 solo tackles that resulted in a loss for the offense. That's the most in the Kirby era. Like Roquan had 7 in a couple games. Nakobe had 7 in a couple games. I had to go back to 2015. Jordan Jenkins, Tim Kimbrough, to get to where you're getting 8, 9 stops like that. So a lot of him making individually great plays. There was a jet sweep on third down later in the game where he just completely handled things. And the key with that is, I think with his play, you see what it can be. Now it's about the third guy, like you said with Raylan Wilson. Before, Allen was the third guy. It was Munden, Dumas-Johnson, and then him. Well, now Wilson, because they don't play all the time. Those guys rotate.
Right.
Raylan Wilson still got 25 snaps, I think. Like, so now it's getting him up to speed, getting him those game reps over these next 2 games to be ready to play against Alabama.
Exactly. Well, listen, we're going to talk next up in the next segment. It's going to be rapid fire. But first, let's talk about LinkedIn and your chance to connect with Jarvis on Subtext. And I know we're not going there now, but I knew I needed to say it.
Yeah, no problem. Yep.
So, guys, the one thing that we always do each week is talk about what we feel the identity word is for Georgia. And so I want to ask you, Brent, if you think of that one word that characterizes the identity that we've now seen in Georgia for week 10 of this college football regular season, what would you say is that word?
With all the pieces there, it's explosive. Like, this is, I think I made this analogy earlier in the season, but last year with Darnell Washington, you were an insanely efficient offense, 7-8 yards a play consistently. Now this year with the playmakers, with Lovett added, with Thomas added, with Beck's ability to push the ball down the field on a consistent basis, especially in the intermediate 20 to 25-yard range, you're a more explosive offense. You basically went from Freddie Freeman to Matt Olson from a first baseman standpoint. You went from efficiency and batting average and doubles to explosive slugging power RBIs. And that's what their offense is now. I
love it. What about you, Jarvis?
Yeah, I think just the maturation of Carson Beck, I really feel like he's the center of all of this, right? Because we know that Georgia's going to have that talent, surrounding them. And they made sure that by bringing in, getting these guys like Ra Thomas and Dominique Lovett to come into the fold. And I think that Mike Bobo needs a lot more credit than what he's getting, because there were some people trying to get the pitchforks out early on in the season. Oh, Mike Bobo, he don't know what the heck he's doing. But as soon as this offense started cooking, and Carson Beck started throwing for over 300 yards, I think went four consecutive games, during the season at a stretch right there. So I just think the maturation of Carson Beck being his own quarterback, coming out of the shadow of Stetson Bennett. Now, granted, probably have to get a national championship on his belt to be able to do that. But I'm just saying, understanding what type of quarterback Carson Beck is and what his capabilities are, as a starting quarterback for Georgia, I think that it is just, you see it and you understand that Mike Bobo trusts him to be able to make necessary throws to push the ball down the field that Stetson Bennett probably wouldn't be able to make. So, and I think just seeing Mike Bobo make that necessary adjustment as a play caller to understand what he has and establish that identity, I just think it just speaks to the coaching. Like, I think this is something that we've been touching on throughout this show. The coaching is real on this squad, and I think that Mike Bobo deserves a lot more credit than he's been getting in these past few games.
What's amazing about that is you think about how much attention is paid to this sport. And then also, given where we live, how interesting it is on the other part at the professional level. Coaching matters infinitely.
Yes.
And all these guys, they're all working 80-hour weeks, and others are just better at the job. Like, that's
hands down,
just fact. And right now, this staff as a whole starts at the top down. You sort of have to believe in them before anything else.
This episode of the ATL Football Party is brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stake wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available? That's why you check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs help find the right people for your team faster and for free. And guess what, guys? When I was on my job search, I'm telling you, LinkedIn was my go-to, because you don't have to worry about all these spam and all this other type of stuff that you have to deal with on these other job postings. But I'm telling you, LinkedIn is where you're going to find the best candidate. And plus, all you got to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. So get the word out. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you quickly prioritize who you like to interview and hire. So guess what, guys? LinkedIn is the place why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number one, not number two, not number three, number one in delivering quality hires versus LinkedIn leading competitors, LinkedIn Jobs help you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Yeah, Brent, I think this offense has been making a lot of noise for people to start paying attention to. And I think that, it starts with Kirby Smart, and then it kind of trickles down to Mike Bobo. And this is why we see the product that's been put out on this field this year. And I think Georgia's going to be able to take it into this game up against Tennessee. Now, for me, I don't foresee Kirby Smart letting guys start looking ahead to the SEC championship, Georgia Tech, and all that stuff like that. But how do you see this game playing out against the Tennessee Volunteers?
Well, it's interesting when you think about true road games. They really only had one because at Vanderbilt, no. Florida, like half the stadium's your fans, and usually by the end, it's mainly all of your fans because the other ones leave. So this is a true environment test, and Tennessee has nothing left to play for. This is just being the spoiler. They can't win the East. This is kind of in essence their season, and I think you're going to see a lot of Joe Milton running, and the potential for him to have a great game is there. He hasn't been able to consistently put it together, but the environment is real, and they're going to. And the thing that's interesting about Tennessee is they are relatively solid, and sort of one of the better parts of their team is the pass rush.
Yeah,
and they blitz and play aggressive style more so like Missouri than what Ole Miss did. So if that's the case, and they force you into a turnover or two, who knows? Then the environment takes over, and then it becomes a legit chance to be a 4-quarter game. If Georgia plays clean, I don't think it's going to have any problem. But again, road tests, like the last time you saw them on the road, it was a 7-point game against Auburn.
Yeah, and I think you basically just pointed out what Kirby Smart is going to point out all week. And I think there's going to be a drill down and say, hey, guys, this is a real true test. If you go up here half-stepping, Tennessee is going to definitely have something waiting just for you. And speaking of waiting and making sure that you all guys are checking us out each and every day, we appreciate you guys for checking out the Atlanta Football Party, whether it be Falcons focus or today like the Georgia Bulldogs. If you haven't listened to our football party on the Atlanta Falcons, check that out. And if you haven't checked out our ATL Sports Party, that is coming up as well. So we appreciate you guys for rocking with us each and every day. Our everydayers, we thank you. We love you. And also, guys, if you don't do anything else with your life, make sure that you share love, show love, and most importantly, spread a little love.